Awake thou that sleepest. Arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Morning, Satan. Satan has brainwashed an entire nation. Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
An entire globe.
Yeah. We live in an amoral and unjust society. Let's do this, folks. Let's do this. But look, we are in a position where the enemy is quite obvious. We have no excuse. We're without excuse. And unlike most of the other podcasts, broadcasts, wherever, we're not going to let you forget about J-6ers, folks. They still need to be recognized as normal American citizens, actually American patriots. I was watching Fox News the other night, and one of the show hosts was interviewing somebody, and that person mentioned, in terms of negative terms, J-6ers. And of course, the Fox host didn't say anything. Just not to say is to say, folks. Not to say is to say. What happened on January 6, 2021 is embarrassing for America. It's no wonder other countries supposedly don't respect us. Look what we do to our own people.
That's the thing I'm bothered by. Despite what you might think or feel about the J-6ers, the demands for these illegals to have due process, and that the senators would go as far as going to where is it, El Salvador?
Yeah.
To visit someone who was deported for whatever reasons, I don't know. But ignoring the fact that these guys have been in prison and mistreated for 2 years or more.
Some are still there, by the way.
Without due process, never going through the process that every American citizen has a right to. That's very disturbing, and why people aren't questioning that very thing, I don't know.
Well, he who controls the information controls the world. And the information is being controlled by anti-God, progressive, leftists, who won't let you. Well, we got so much to discuss today about judge and justice and judges. Judge not, lest you be judged, right? You Christians. We're not going to let you forget about J6. We have a J6 as a guest today, maybe one in the second hour as well, to talk when we talk about justice, and maybe even more in the first hour. But this needs to be out there, and I'm going to say it probably several times during the program today. There is nobody. I don't care if you are a hardened criminal, which they weren't, but if you are a hardened criminal, had been in prison, and you went to court because of January 6th, and you went to court in Washington, D.C., you did not. There is no way possible that you got a fair trial. No way possible that you got a fair trial. No way. And that being the case, and we're going to talk about commutations versus pardons today, every individual that was charged with related charges against them for January 21st, that's you're pardoned, you're out the door. You have to prove that they did something wrong. Comparatively speaking to what we see in America today, are you kidding me? Walking through a building? You know, you can take a key. What is a hate crime? You can take a key and scratch the dickens out of a certain type of car because you hate what that individual represents. Is that not a hate crime? Huh? Of course it is. Folks, John Adams said that our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for the government of any other. Talk about democracy as all you want, and we are a republic, but democracy is a big key word. We need to get it together, folks. Those that know, and you're listening to this program today, you know to do good. And for God's sake, do it. Yeah, pray first or pray on your way, but get in the game. You're going to find out an awful lot about your country, yourself, and your creator. More than you could ever learn by just reading and just praying. And you're capable of at least making a phone call. The President of the United States has been asked to celebrate a natural family month. Let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Like I said before, this is a litmus test. I'm not smiling this morning, am I, Mr. Anderson?
No, it's hard to smile sometimes.
You ever see a football player tackle somebody with a smile on their face? You're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor do either of us hold a doctorate degree in anything. Not that that would make any difference, especially this day and age, and that's just our opinion, of course. We only ask that you as an individual and or corporately do not take our statements or those that we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend that you act on them as if they are facts, although they might very well be just that, facts. But again, that's our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, or repeat anything you hear today, or that any information or opinions we represent is meant for the good of the order, and by no means is it intended to harm anyone. Headlines are very telling about the nation that you live in. I have this first couple of headlines under seeking God. Seeking God. Europe sees surge in church attendance and baptisms. Be a good place to start there in Europe. Harvard has become an outpost of Islamism. How about playing God? Experiments to dim the sun will be approved within weeks in Europe. You know, there's a book of Judges. And we'll be talking about that in the second hour today. How does a president become a dictator? By executive order. This is scary, folks. This is scary.
Yeah, I agree.
Trump is setting a precedent that we just do not want. Look, I understand the reaction, and I think there's a better reaction to all these book of Judges, if you will, in America. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, I'm just nodding with agreement.
It's all falling apart. Currency crisis coming soon. Health crisis, COVID. Currency crisis. Well, what do we do? What do we do? Let's just put it on the computer. Yeah, that's a safe way to do that. Ugh. The state is paving the way with ambiguity and effectively legalizing infanticide. Senate Bill 5093 in the Washington State Legislature is enacted. The bill decriminalizes concealing the bodies of babies who have died after being stillborn and strips away investigative authority over a suspected abortion. effectively legalizing infanticide. There's a lot of good words here, okay? There is infanticide. That's killing a baby. And this is the ACLJ. ACLJ has long fought to provide protection for babies who survive abortions. In the same spirit, we strongly urge George Ferguson, governor, to veto the deeply dangerous bill. How about this? Trump task force to educate anti-Christian bias. DOJ abused and targeted peaceful Christians while ignorant violent anti-Christian offenses. That'll be interesting. Define SCOTUS. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
I tried to get video of that meeting with that task force, and you could get maybe the first 5-10 minutes of it. That was it. I wanted to hear the conversation, what was going on when Pam Bondi led that meeting. I find that these executive orders, as you started out, are very concerning. And what does anti-Christian bias and anti-Semitism, how do they go together or conflict? I'm confused by some of this stuff. So you can't talk about anybody? Is that what we're starting to say?
We'll decide who you can talk about and who you can talk to and what you do is what we're saying.
And meantime, did you know this? Since 9/11, there's been a 74% growth of mosque in Texas.
Mm-hmm. You have to, Islam, you have to give them this kind of credit. They do get in the game. They are there. They are in position and at the ready. And I mean in position and at the ready. And take a trip to Costco or Sam's Club. And it's getting to the point where English is a secondary language.
Seems to be. Depends if you're in the big city or not, I think.
Yeah. We'll I went to Sam's Club. I bought my Sam's Club membership this week or last week. I went to Sam's Club, did some shopping there. And then I went over to Costco and did a little comparison. Not shopping, but workers and the people that were there. And I saw a lot of tattoos, butch haircuts, and I didn't know there were that many collars that you could put in your hair. I really didn't.
At both places or?
No, at Costco.
At Costco.
Not at Sam's, but at Costco. And you all know that I went up the line with DEI at Costco up to the VP level.
Yeah.
Tried to get them to understand what's happening. What I said is happening already. It's just like overnight. Boom. Butch. Collared hair. Tattoos. And
eye makeup.
Strange conversations with people. Anyway, here's an interesting fact, and we'll get to our guest here. Gen Z voters 70 and older are the only age group that rates Trump negatively. Did you know that, Mr. Anderson?
No.
Shame on you. With voters in their 20s, he's up 2 points, up 9 points for 30s, tied 40s, up 3 in the 50s, up 5 in the 60s. But the Septuagint, he's so far underwater, 14 points, which makes everything overall a tie. I didn't know that, but I know a lot of these protests, there's a lot of older folks there. Older folks. from Bill Clinton. Dems maybe, huh?
I don't know. I don't know their political affiliation. I see very, very thin line between what you call right and left, or liberal or conservative.
Yeah. Same bug, different feet. It's starting to look that way. It's starting to look that way. Hey, Mr. Anson, let's take a break and then bring our guest on. We're going to be talking J-6, folks. We're going to be talking justice.
Last Call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
You got that video?
Yeah.
I am honored to have in my.
Yeah, we are honored to have on our program David Morshell. David is a trained Christian minister, crisis chaplain, and medical specialist who found himself in Washington, D.C. on January 6th and responded to a call to help from a medic. He pushed into the Capitol with the crowd and left as soon as he could. For his 11 minutes in the Capitol, he and his family have sorely suffered. He was in some level of federal custody for 2 years until his sentence was commuted by President Trump. David is one of 14 people that did not receive a pardon. David, welcome to Last Call, brother.
Oh, thank you for having me again, BJ.
How are you and the family doing?
Oh, I was going to save the tearjerker until later, but I think I'll go ahead and do it right now since you're asking.
Okay.
My daughter wrote a song, through her own pain, and this is my 9-year-old daughter. She said, "It may feel as if the road is about to have a big bend. It may seem as if the sun will not rise again, but take courage, dear child. Your life will go on. Someday you will find yourself better than before. Someday you will find your life easier than before. So be brave, my child, for this is not the end. So be strong." So BJ, we're hurting over here, by God's grace, and I think, BJ, this song, I think that this was God. God gave her this song. You can just hear the voice of God.
You can feel it, David.
Yeah, it's like look, it may feel as if the sun will not rise again, but take courage, dear child. It's like somebody's speaking to her, speaking life into her pain. And like you said, I'm one of 14 people who were not pardoned. So the pardon, BJ, is the forgiveness. When you're commuted, you only just get out of jail. So the pardon restores your rights, and Trump pardoned almost everybody except for us 14. And there's unintended consequences. Now I think, and we can go into this later, but I think there are some unintended consequences that me and my family are suffering. I say unintended because, as I'll explain later, I think Trump has something very good planned for us. But right now we're suffering. I mean, for example, I spoke at a Republican club just 2 days ago, and I had the postcards. We'll get to the postcards later. So I had some postcards out. I had some of our own letters out, requesting for a pardon. So I had these out, and I asked the lady, "Hey, do you want to, would you sign this postcard?" She says, "No." Because I think Trump didn't pardon you for a reason. I think he saw something there. And I'm like, lady, you're not, this is Republican, right? So you're not in possession of the facts, so let's talk about this, right? But I think unintended consequences, now we're viewed with suspicion because, hey, Trump didn't pardon him. Trump must have seen something there, where in fact, I think, we'll unpack it later, but, I think Trump was using this as an opportunity to investigate this whole sedition narrative, the insurrection narrative, because guess what? The 14 of us, we're all co-defendants with Trump on civil suits. So there's civil suits that arose out of January 6th, and we're co-defendants with Donald Trump, the president, right? So anyway, so we're viewed with suspicion now. And I think that another thing that's unintended, I don't think Trump was trying to do this, but it also, I think, lends credence to the insurrection narrative, because people say, well, maybe there really was an insurrection. Maybe these guys really did do sedition. Why didn't Trump pardon them, right? And Trump hasn't been saying anything. He's been holding his cards close to his chest. In fact, Revolver.news just came out with an article this morning. It said that Trump is investigating his own assassination attempts, but he's keeping it secret. So, this is very personal for Trump as well, this whole insurrection narrative. They tried to take him down. They were going to put him in prison. And you know what happens to people in prison, right? Several January 6ers died in prison as well. Anyway, I would go into that. But, so
killed themselves trying to avoid it. Go ahead.
Or killed themselves trying to avoid it. So now people think, hey, maybe the insurrection really was real. And I think the sooner Trump comes out and releases the facts and makes a public statement, we've looked at the facts, this insurrection is false, and pardons us and makes a big fanfare over it, the sooner the better. So, the other unintended consequences, it was only the people who went to trial for sedition. So for example, 2 oath keepers who took plea deals for sedition. That is, they said, I did it, I'm guilty, right? Those guys got pardoned. They testified against us. They signed documents saying that, that essentially betrayed Trump. But these guys were pardoned. So, another unintended consequence is, hey, he pardoned the betrayers, but he didn't pardon the faithful. Because I don't know if you know, BJ, that the prosecutors threatened us with life imprisonment, saying that sedition was tantamount to treason. So all of us, hey, we withstood the test, the big test. Like, we're not going to give in to the narrative, with the threat of life imprisonment. We chose rather to dare life imprisonment than betray Trump and betray the MAGA movement. So, these are unintended consequences. I think Trump's going to do it, but I think the sooner that he does it, the better.
David, we're talking, and I take things from the family standpoint. The damage that is done to the family. Now, listen, prison is not heaven. It's like one of our pastor friends, says, sleeping next door to hell. Yeah. But it's what you were 2 years with a strained relationship with your family. You just read something from your daughter, heart-wrenching. Yeah. This has a permanent effect on the family, be it children, be it relatives, sons, daughters, aunts, uncles. They're put in a position where if they try to defend you, then they're automatically assumed guilty.
My daughter, one of my daughters was at school. And the teacher was like, where's your daddy? And she said, well, he's in prison. And and the teacher was like, well, I won't say anything. Like, this is some big, some bad thing, and we taught them, and people send us letters all the time. You're a hero, right? So I mean, this on this little girl's heart. One of my other daughters, she had money, right? She had money set aside. And I said, well, sweetheart, why aren't you spending your money? She wanted this doll. And I said, well, sweetheart, just spend your money. You've got it. Why don't you buy this thing? And she said, no, Daddy, I know you don't have any money anymore. And I'm trying to save for college. She's 9. And she's not spending money to buy a doll that she wants because she feels the burden of trying to go to college. I mean, we were financially devastated to pay our lawyer, and I'm thankful for him. He gave us a deal, right? But it took we were trying to save up for a house. It took all our house money. It took all our college savings funds. It's taking almost everything. So, I mean, putting back together our family again, this is going to be a long road. And this delay in between has now been 3 months since we were commuted. I'm glad to be out of prison. I'm glad to be out of custody. That's wonderful. But I mean, this is a long road. I have 2 medical companies. I can go back in the medical field. I have 2 lined up that are waiting contingent on the pardon. And, we're just stuck here in limbo. We're just waiting for this pardon. So we're just urging Trump, please, I know you're going to do it. Just go ahead and issue that pardon.
I'm with you, brother. And we're going to bring Mag on here probably at the break. And something that we're trying to do is to make people aware and apply pressure to the president, to the administration, to actually, I'd love to apply some pressure to some pastors, because they could sure make a difference.
Yeah. Hey, churches are quiet. They're not helping me. Well,
that's why we got into the situation we got into. It's a long story, but churches have just remained silent way too long. Not to say is to say again, folks. Not to do is to do. Well, we'll pray for them. Yeah. That's not an excuse.
No.
Prayer is not an excuse.
No, look at Nazi Germany. I'm sorry, I'm kind of fired up here. Look at what happened. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, right? This video, this movie just came out, right? His wife, he's in church, right? He's in church, and the Nazis come up and they go and they're like, the Nazis are in the church, and his wife, or no, it was a conference. And they're saying all this Nazi propaganda, and his wife elbows him. She's like, hey, where's a man that's going to stand up to this? And so his wife is like, you got to stand up for the gospel. You got to stand up for Christ in the midst of this. And so he stands up in the middle of this congregation, right? Because, I mean, this is how nations fall, by people not standing up and not speaking out. And anyway,
which is exactly what you did on January 6th.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You showed up and you spoke up. Just absolutely amazing. Mr. Anderson, let's take a break, and I want to bring Meg in here, and I see Ryan Zink's going to join us as well. J-6 folks, don't ever forget. We haven't even scratched the surface in terms of restoration for these folks, and so some of it you just cannot restore. You cannot get a lot of this back, and a lot of this, again, from the family standpoint, is just pure child abuse. I mean, point blank. We've been abusing children of good citizens. If you would, Mr. Anderson, there you go. PardonThe14.com. PardonThe14.com. And don't you ever forget, America. Number one, this can never happen again. Never, ever happen again.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we're back with David Michelle. And folks, injustice to me is like fingernails on a chalkboard. Okay? I can't stand it. And honest to God, that's every time, especially with the J-6, like, we're not doing anything. Come on. What is the problem here? Well, they were pardoned, they're commuted, they're okay. Don't worry about it. There is a difference.
Not okay.
There is a difference between a pardon and a commutation. Before I get into that, I want to bring Maga in, and I want you to promote. Good morning, Maga, and thank you very much for all the young lady.
Hello again.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything you're doing. You guys are amazing. And every time I hear you speak, I go, I could be doing something more. What am I doing? So what we are doing is we're doing the postcard campaign to Pardon the 14. David Michelle, probably he showed you one of these. And we'd ask you to visit that website, PardonThe14.com, and request your free postcards. I mean, we're doing this all on our own dollar. We'll send you the postcards. All you have to do is sign your name and address, at least your state and city, and drop it in the mail. That's a simple, easy way to do something. And take it a step further. Do you know a few other patriots, a few other mega supporters, a few other family members that care about this issue, or just care about David Michelle and his family? You know, I know them and have gotten to know them the past few years, and that's why I'm helping and doing this. You don't have to know every single person on the postcard to know that they're innocent and absolutely deserve a pardon of innocence. We know it was a setup. We know January 6th was a setup. We've heard the fake news narrative the last few years, and I'd encourage you, whether you've been doing something and maybe now you're tired and you've kind of stepped back. I know we all feel like that. Well, this is so easy. All you have to do is sign your name and address. Anyone can do that. I don't care how busy you are. So just take the time to go on and fill out the simple form, and let us get you some postcards to start sharing and spreading the word. This helps us so much because these postcards are going to President Trump. And I know he's a busy man and you think he's got a lot of issues, but he really does care about we the people. And the last few years, even when he wasn't president, my siblings and I would write to him at Mar-a-Lago. And I'd say 9 out of 10 times we got a response, not necessarily always from President Trump, but from his team. My sister got a signed letter back from Trump that actually was signed by the president. So he does care about we the people, and we've seen that the last few years. And we know that hasn't changed now that he's in the White House. So it's just a matter of getting this in front of him, getting it on his desk, so the remaining 12 patriots can receive a pardon. One of those guys was pardoned because he had a connection to President Trump. So if we just get a letter on his desk for the remaining 12, we're down to 12 now. We know they can get the pardon. We know President Trump cares. We know that January 6th was a setup. We know the fake news media narrative. Now it's time to do something. Let's put words to action. Request your postcards and help us finish this so David Michelle can go back to providing for his precious family. I know his daughter. She's really sweet. She pen palled Mega Mouse the last few years. And we need these families to be able to work on putting the pieces back together, but he can't do that right now. While he's still kind of in this limbo, trying to balance a job and advocate for his pardon all at the same time, and spend time with his family. That's a huge strain. So let's get this finished so he can truly be a free man and go back to doing what God's gifted him at, and that is being a surgeon. I believe, like that's incredible.
Working with surgeons.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible, and I don't think we could all do that. And we need more Christians, as he's a Christian minister in the, what do you call healthcare. Yeah. We need those. I mean, I'd want that doctor, wouldn't you? So let's get him back to where he can serve God with the gifts and talents that he's given him.
You have no idea what you're missing by not getting into this game. To not get there's where you see a need that you're calling. May not necessarily be J-6, although that's very, very important to do right now. But there's so many needs in America today. Mm-hmm. So many. And people are looking to have you help them. Like Ryan, we'll get to Ryan in a minute, and then Dave will get back to you. Mega, you need help. We need help with the Natural Family Foundation and what we're doing. Ryan, what have you been doing these days?
Man, I'm still hot and heavy in the J6 pursuit. My law team and I just got, I think, about 100 hours of video footage that's never been seen before released from the government right now. So I'm currently the only January 6th political defendant that is still on the appeal. My case has not been dismissed. I have been fighting it tooth and nail in order to overturn and review all of the evidence that would help free the January 6ers. And I'm taking on all of the costs of this. And I'm going to add all of the other January 6 defendants in at a later date. That way they don't have to pay anything in order to get on or get a settlement out of this ordeal that's coming. So I've been getting a lot of opposition from Ed Martin and of course the ever famous James Boasberg, who's currently still trying to wreak havoc on the Trump administration, even though he's been defeated.
Judge. Yeah.
In multiple different aspects, but it's a daily battle for me. It's a fight. I do believe, since we're on the topic, the pardons and everything else, I just want to talk a little bit about, the past and the history of like what I've been researching and what I see from all the different aspects surrounding January 6th, because this type of event has happened before. It's called the Reichstag Fire of 1933. The fire started on February 27th, 1933, which damaged the Reichstag building, and the Nazi regime quickly blames communists for this fire, using it as a pretext to crack down on political opposition.
Yep.
So if you look at who was actually involved, which it was a Dutch communist by the name of Van der Lubbe, who was arrested at the scene and later convicted and was executed for the Reichstag fire. But what this thing has done, these different decrees, all of this area that has been poured out of this. President Hindenburg, issued the Reichstag fire decree, which basically suspended the civil liberties and allowed for the mass arrest of political opponents, including many of the communists. And so when you go back and look at the consequences from the Reichstag fire, the crackdown on the political opposition were crucial steps to the consolidation of power for the Nazi Party and the establishment of Nazi dictatorship. So, I mean, if you look exactly at what's going on about the specific targeting, the way that things were done from the Biden administration and the FBI, who was literally acting as the SS hand, the Gestapo of the Democratic Party, and you come out, you see that there's going to be players that are inside of this. And I still believe to this day that there are January 6th defendants who are feds. I think that they process them right along, just kind of moving them through, with the system to avoid detection, this and that. But that's what I aim to prove. And that's why I'm still continuing inside of this fight, that I believe that everyone should have a pardon that has one, unless there is a very valid reason, because I do trust President Trump 100%. There is no discretion about my statements. I've endorsed Trump from the very first all the way to the end of even where we're at in the pardons with everything. But I do believe that DOJ has been infiltrated by a couple of people who do not have Trump's best interest or the American people's interest in mind. And so that's why I continue my fight. Transparency for the American people. I'm just saying, if they can push trans people and all this other stuff down our throat for 4 years.
You want transparency. Okay, go ahead.
What they see on January 6th footage.
Amen. Thank you, Ryan. And for all your work. I mean, you're at it. You got your nose to the grindstone, brother. And it's obvious. And I think you're the right man for the job.
Well, and I'd like to thank my team as well. Roger Roots and Emily and Mosley have really. This has been a long fight for us. We're approaching the 4-year mark of everything. And it's come at a great cost. As I'm sure David can talk to you about. There's a cost that comes with January 6th. My wife and I have had 2 miscarriages during the process of sentencing and conviction. They killed 2 of my kids. And, someone has to pay for that somewhere down the line, whether it's from the laws that we finally get back in the United States, or when they take their last breath, they stand before the Father. And he's the one that makes the final judgment over it. But until that day, I'm still going to fight for the American people, because I promise you, if this can happen to me and this can happen to David or any other J6er that's out there, it can happen to you and it can happen to your family. If you're not paying attention and you're not fighting this, I promise you, evil men will step up where there is no resistance or there are weak men in power. And that is the problem with power, is that power creates enough of a structure that we have to start paying attention to the lower levels. Federal elections are lost at the lower levels. Let me just go ahead and state that. The men and women that you elect at your local positions right now start to garnish and gain power with those who will support them in the evil things that they want to do. And the next thing you know, Kamala Harris is running for president. You know what I'm saying? So get involved in your local elections. It doesn't stop with just this, but I digress. I could go on all day.
Yeah, I know. David, comments, please.
Well, Ryan, nice to meet you. I've heard you speak before. I've seen some of your work. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking that on. If I can facilitate any of the Oathkeeper information, please let me know. Please reach out. Going back to something that Ryan said, where people think they have what's called hindsight bias. That is, we have the saying hindsight is 20/20, right? They think, well, you should have known. It was so obvious that this was going to happen, and they feel like, well, I can avoid something like this later on. you know, like I can, if this ever happens again, I'll be able to avoid it. No, you just don't know. I mean, nobody knew January 6th was going to be January 6th. You know, we were there for another Trump rally. I mean, there had been in November, they had the Million MAGA March. In December, they had Million MAGA March again. And then and nothing happened. There were no issues, there were no riots, I mean, 4 people were stabbed in December, which is why everybody was freaked out and wanted the Oath Keepers to help protect them. And so that, you know, that's one reason why we were there. But as far as riot, there was nothing. And so the only people that knew that this was going to happen on January 6th were the bad guys who behind the scenes setting it up and ensuring it was going to happen. And I think, you know, the Weaponization Committee came out at one time and they said that they believe that it was the FBI working with the Capitol Police and the Metropolitan Police to set up the whole thing. So anyway, you don't know when this is going to happen. And so we have to fix January 6th because, you know, I mean, I'm a minister. I'm a medical worker. Like, you know, I'm a rioter or anything like that. You know, I'm just basically a bystander there to help. And then all of a sudden I'm being accused of sedition, which they say is tantamount to treason. Right. So, I mean, if it can happen to me, Ryan, I don't know your story. I'm sure you're a good guy. You know, you seem like a good guy. You know, if it can happen to us, man, it can happen to you.
I wrote in an email, you don't even have to go out to have this happen to you folks, about the natural family and how strong a movement it was, and that it was basically a social bomb that's just going to blow the heck out of a lot of the movements that are going on right now. A month later, I got a visit from the FBI. Okay.
Unbelievable.
No.
Unbelievable. Intimidation.
Yeah. It's crazy how things like that happen. But please, I don't know whether they're monitoring everyone and how they're monitoring everyone. But if you're a conservative and you're a Christian, especially, excuse me, MAGA, but especially if you're a male and a Christian and white, you're a target. You really are.
You are a target.
I think Norm, one of our panelists, wanted in here. Let me see if I can find Norm. There he is. And then we'll take a quick break. Go ahead, Norm. Norm, you're muted.
Sorry. Ryan, thank you for your fight and your willingness to stand up, you know, for the truth. And David, there's no doubt in my mind that your daughter's song is a word from the Lord. And the scripture came to my mind out of the mouth of babes. And I don't know, I've said all along that God chose the strongest to go through this. And he's going to use you in a mighty way. I don't know if you received any of the poems that I've written under Uncle Wisdom, but God showed me about Joseph and how he was, you know, mistreated for years and years. But see, God was doing a work in his heart all along to use him in a great and mighty way. And I have no doubt that you J-6ers that have survived this and are still fighting, God's going to use you in a mighty way. And, you know, I believe strongly for the last few years, one of my prayers has been for justice, and we're going to see justice. But I think at the same time, we're going to have to stay after this, just like MAGA Mouse with her cards. And I talked with her the other night. She's sending me some, and, you know, we're going to have to keep it in front of them because there's so many areas out there that injustice has taken place that if we don't keep this in front of them, you know, they'll get focused on something else. So
yeah.
We've all got to stay in the fight, but no doubt, you know, God is, I think the locust years will be restored to you.
Yeah.
So God bless you.
Hang in there.
Thank you, Norm. And to your point about, you know, making you stronger, I'm invigorated. Like, I'm invigorated by the fight. I'm sitting there in prison, freezing cold, shivering cold in prison, and just saying, Lord, you are the pearl of great price. You are the treasure in a field. I sell all that I have to know you more. Thank you for this greater revelation, and just digging deep in faith. And now that faith is starting to blossom and bloom in this vigor, and this, you know, just ready to get out there. And I mean, I am working it. Like, you know, I've got seven different events over the next 7 days. Like, we're working this. We are working this pardon, but I'm invigorated by the fight. I think God's given us strength.
Amen.
Amen. What a blessing. Hey, Mr. Anson, let's take a break and we'll close out this segment. David, MAGA, Ryan, and company, everybody that I meet that has been involved with this J-6 issue has been a blessing to me, and they've been an education to me. And when you take those negative things in your life and you can say, you know what, that wasn't very pleasant, but it did do this. And if it hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have known about this. And it's going to make you sensitive to things that other people are experiencing. This isn't all about J6. Okay. This is not all about J6, although it's important. Please don't misunderstand. It's very important. But what you have learned by stepping out and by doing is something that you can only share with people who've done similar things, but that doesn't mean you can't do things for people in general. Take us to break, Mr. Anderson.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
You need to hear this. The destruction of the family is the destruction of the Western world.
Bummer.
And that's what they're after, folks. They did it with COVID. They did it with our government-run schools. They did it with the sexual revolution. They did it with the feminist revolution. There's all kinds of attacks on the male and the female, like it was in the beginning. Like it was in the beginning. God, like Satan attacked the family. The very first time they were formed. Boom. I'm gonna put strife and division. And it's been that way forever. And your faith in God is what's going to keep you sane in all this and keep the family together. The family day in America is just an absolute mess, folks. It is an absolute mess. Situations like J6 obviously accentuate that, but there's so many things that are going on. Men, we have to take the leadership back in the family. Okay, we have to take that back. It's important. It's where the children are going to learn authority. They learn it from their parents, specifically the father. Ephesians 5, God, Jesus Christ, man, woman, children. Boom, vertical relationship. That's been broken. It's now horizontal, where the state, anybody, teachers can be the fathers, if you will. The state's your daddy. I got off on a tangent there. I apologize for that.
No, the family is the building block of society.
Yes, sir.
And if you look at literature from 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that was well known. I mean, that was their understanding. But if you ask somebody on the street today, what's the building block of society? They would say the individual, which is completely wrong, because it's inside the family that you learn how to resolve conflict. How do we resolve conflict now? We just storm out of the room, we punch the person or whatever. That's what the movies teach us. But watch the Waltons. Watch the Waltons. What's striking is when the children have an argument, they start fighting. The girl doesn't leave the room. She stays right there, and they kind of work it through. They work it out, right? Whereas modern television, they storm out of the room. If you watch some of like Facebook or whatever, they're gonna punch the person or something like that. But no, I mean the family is the building block of society. If we want to rebuild the city, rebuild the foundation, we got to start putting the family back together. And they've been taking the children away from January 6ers. And out in Colorado, I just read about how they took the children away from parents that wouldn't they wouldn't support the trans whatever on their child. They took the child away.
You'll let the steam out of my ears here, okay?
Strong family, strong society, right?
Amen. Amen. Here's the deal. Define a family. Define a woman. Define a family.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can we rephrase the question, please? I don't understand. It's such a joke, But like going back to what you were talking about earlier. There's actually numbers and percentages to when a man follows Christ in the family.
Yes.
If the entire family is not saved, and the father comes to Christianity and begins to lead by example, 93% of the rest of the family will come to know Jesus. See, that's the crazy thing. 93% of families, if the father comes to know the Lord, they will also follow in his footsteps and come to know Jesus, which is, again, one of the greatest examples why men are designed to be leaders. And that's not to say that women can't be leaders, but if the head of the household comes underneath and says, hey, this is the way, Jesus is the truth, he is the light of the world, then the rest of the family comes to follow, because the leadership and the strength and the bond and the unity that comes out of that is, I believe it's otherworldly. I think that it actually comes from God, that he gives the direction inside of that. And, I think that's one of the reasons that I was targeted so hard. I've always been open and very honest about what happened. And the thing about them taking away J6'ers' children, that's true. Me and my wife had to forego our legal marriage. We got married at the church and had our wonderful daughter, Miss Zaylee, finally. She came to us after the 2 miscarriages that we had from all the stress. But we actually got to see this firsthand, like where it looked as though they were going to try to start coming to take our child. And luckily, President Trump was already, getting in that transition stage of things. But they already took 2 children from me. So that's part of the emotion, the fight that comes with this, because not just the Christian family, but the ecclesia, the church itself, the very stabilizations, because a church is not a building. A church is not a place where you go. The church is when 2 or more are gathered in my name, I am also
100%.
And that's the beautiful thing about it, is because right now we speak of Jesus inside of this room, this show that we're on, and God is also here with us. And that's one of the beautiful things about faith that you can have, because every J6er I've ever met, they're extremely strong-willed people, or they are absolutely devastated by what has happened to them. And sometimes it's both. I will admit, for a long time, we felt, we kind of felt like we were downtrodden, but the Lord brings strength.
It's a process.
If you come to know him, if you come to follow Jesus, and you get out and you actually see and you talk to your neighbors and don't believe what you see on TV, the world's not that bad.
There's no easy way out. There is no easy way out. You might think you're taking the easy way, and like the court. Well, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to submit, and because I have to. But there really is no easy way out, and you are going to learn from the experiences. And I'm thinking of myself, because I always tried to take the easy way out, and I was just putting off what was going to happen to me, and finally, when it did happen, I can be grateful for it now. I wasn't pleased when it did happen, but I'm grateful for it now. Speaking of grateful, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk with the 3 of you today. I think if Stuart can get time, he said he might join us in the second hour, Stuart Rhodes. And we're going to be talking about justice in hour number 2. And we're going to start off with Judges. My goodness, where are we today? In the book of Judges in the Bible, is that where we are? Where the judges took over? Because that seems to be where we are right now. David, any closing comments?
Please go to pardonthefourteen.com. You can, this is the easiest thing. This is the easiest good deed you'll do in a month. Just, order the cards, just fill out your information. MAGA Mouse is going to send it to you. Just put name and address, put a stamp on it. Your stamp is a donation. I mean, I went to the post office yesterday, and it was $80 worth of stamps. I mean, it's cheap compared to living with the felony hanging over my head. Okay. I don't mind it, but your stamp is a donation. Thank you. This is the easiest good deed you'll do. Go there, order postcards, order several of them, and just urge the people to send these into Trump. Let's flood the White House with advocacy to pardon the rest of the 14.
Thank you. And you're working in construction now. You're not working in a hospital environment.
Yeah, I can't. Yes, that's correct. I'm working in construction. I'm the most educated construction worker out there. I know 4 languages because of my seminary training. Anyway, so yeah, just swinging a hammer right now, and it's not paying the bills. I mean, I'm not fundraising, but I haven't been able to pay the bills. Since I was arrested, almost 4 years.
Oh, here we go. A little more out. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to be taking. I've got my postcards on the way. Hopefully, I'm going to be taking my cards to the church, and they accepted them last time for Mr. Brown, and that worked. I'm going to be taking them to Tea Party meetings. I've got a meeting with the mayor of a local city. If I give them time, I might even take them over to the mayor and see what she wants to do about it. But I'm not bashful. I've got a meeting coming up. Several meetings coming up within the next 3 weeks, and I'll be taking them with me and encouraging the folks to sign the cards. And yeah, I'll slap a stamp on them and send them out. It's what we need to do. This is a small part of the process that needs to be completed. Commutations versus pardon. They're like we just found out with David. I mean, he can't work his true profession because of his record, because he was commuted and not pardoned. Makes a difference. I think it makes a difference in voting, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't vote.
Yep. And that's nice. That's nice to take a few thousand off voting. Yeah, rolls. That's good. That's good. We like that. Got about a couple minutes. MAGA. Ryan.
I love you guys. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so honored to get to fight with you guys. And every time we come together, like things like this, I'm always like, I could do more. Wow, what else could I be doing? We went to the Republican bean dinner here in our town the other night, and my dad was passing out those Pardon the 14 postcards. He gave them to the young Republicans, the teenage Republicans, and gave them to our chairman for the Republican Party. And I think even the attorney general, if you have any events coming up, just ask, order 40, 50, I'll get them in the mail to you, and just go pass them out, even if half of them get sent back in and the other half just go to spreading the word, it's worth it. And we want to get these patriots across the freedom line, as I like to say, so we can close part of this chapter so we can get on to what Mr. Zink is talking about with transparency for we the people, what really happened on J-6, and also making sure this never happens again. I think David Michelle's talked about that too with the sedition stuff and all, taking the cases further. What were you saying? It's got to be overturned so this doesn't happen again, because the precedent for seditious conspiracy has been set so low. We have to make sure that's changed going forward, or you could be accused of sedition, so that's got to change. And praise God for men who are willing to lead. We need more of them. And I believe women will 100% get behind you guys if you just step up and lead. Women want leaders, and we've had so few of them, but it seems like that makes you guys stand out all the more. So continue to lead, and you'll be surprised how many people will get behind you. We have to continue to take this message that we share on this show and proclaim it everywhere we go. I was convicted. I'm working an outlet sale this week, and I was like, I need to be bolder still. My brother and I were working, and there was a table talking about how they don't like Trump and everything. And the lady at our table didn't like Trump, and she's like, well, do you like Trump? And I was like, yeah, and I talked about the pro-life issue. But next time I'm like, I'm not going to say I like Trump. I'm going to say, I love Trump.
I just about said that. Ryan, we got about 1 minute. I'm sorry, brother. 1 minute. Again, I think Stuart's coming on the second hour. Don't have him in yet, but we're going to talk about justice the second hour. So you're all welcome to stick around. Ryan, real quick.
Man, I am needing help in the legal fight. These filings are expensive. And we're working round the clock. I think I got in bed last night at 2:15. Just looking forward to the next motion, getting stuff done. So if you'd like to support me, my Gibson goes down at the bottom. It's gibsongo.com/Ryan Zink. And it's not just me that you're fighting for. It's all of us. It's the few, the 16, nearly 1,600 of us.
An opportunity to fight for justice. This is an opportunity to fight for justice and restore justice in America and get rid of this lawfare insanity that we're in. Folks, thank you very much for helping out today. God bless you. Godspeed. And I know you do well. Mr. Anderson, if you would, please.
A regular driver's license is managed by your state and stays mostly within state systems. A real ID, by contrast, plugs into interoperable databases, meaning your identity info is accessible across multiple state and federal systems. One example is S2S, state-to-state verification, a system that lets DMVs in all 50 states instantly query each other to prevent duplicate IDs. But that also means federal agencies can tap into a unified identity network. Then there's HART, Homeland Advanced Recognition Technology, a massive DHS biometric database designed to store facial recognition data, iris scans, fingerprints, and behavioral info. Real ID photos are formatted to feed systems like this, so while the card looks similar, the back end is built for surveillance and control at a national level. That's the real difference. This to expose how Kristi Noem's announcement on Real ID is not just a bureaucratic update. Real ID is the activation of a nationwide biometric surveillance system that was quietly built over 20 years. This index shows how Real ID connects to federal facial recognition databases like HART, interstate tracking systems, S2S, and automated enforcement tools, robotic dogs. It dismantles the lie that this is just an ID and lays bare the truth that Trump had every opportunity to stop it but didn't. In fact, he helped finish it. It also takes direct aim at the MAGA influencer class, now defending Real ID out of loyalty, vanity, for shekels, or willful ignorance, turning resistance into compliance theater. It wasn't a press release, it was a quiet surrender.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we are back. Folks, tell your friends, family, associates about us. How many programs are this willing to bring J6ers on and expose the truth like this? Any time that it needs to be exposed. How many are open to that you're listening to? How many are praising the J6ers for what they're doing? How many are talking about the justice system? How many are talking about the family? How many? This is like no other program. None. Spread the word, spread the word. Our Constitution was made for only a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other. John Adams, of course. What do you think old John Adams would think of today's inclusive law and order? The Bible, aka the laws of nature, nature's God, can easily mix today with secular humanism and moral manifestos. Progressive, God-hating left wants to form a coalition, but of course, starting on their side. Remember how we compromise in America? You have the middle, you have the right. I guess for you, that would be the right. And then you have the left. Let me let some more steam out, okay? We start the conversation, not in the middle. Nope. We go over to the left and start it there and maybe inch towards the middle. We never started over on the right and say, hey, let's start in the middle and talk about this. The left wants nothing to do with righteousness. They want nothing to do with natural law. They want everything to do with man's feelings. If you feel it, if it feels good, do it. That's from the 60s and 70s. If it feels good, do it. Well, that's the law of the land, folks. Then don't you dare get in anybody's road from doing that. Children know by the age of 1.5 whether they're male or female. Yeah, they know that. Didn't you know that? Not hardly. Let's start it off with some headlines. By the way, The Babylon Bee was quipping the other day, and here's their headline. Support grows for requiring Supreme Court justices to pass a cognitive test. Our judges are the result of one party or the other winning an election. And then we get to put a biased judge, these are biased judges, into the Supreme Court. Supreme Court. I talked earlier today about the Book of Judges. That seems to be where we are in America today. Another day, another judge blocking Trump's policies. This time it's sanctuary cities. Or a federal judge blocks Trump's directive to require proof of citizenship for voter registration. Here's another block. Federal judge in California issues injunction on Trump administration's effort to cut funding to sanctuary cities. A federal judge in New Hampshire issues injunction for Trump's effort to end DEI. A federal judge in D.C. issues opinion holding Trump's efforts to proof of citizenship and voting. I think I went over that. Yeah, I did. Hours before the White House deadline for states to certify their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs have ended in public schools, a federal court halted the Trump administration requirement, siding with the National Education Association Teachers Union. FBI arrests Wisconsin judge accused of helping illegal immigrants hide from ICE. You know, Tom Cotton said that the Supreme Court needs to rein in rogue federal judges. What do we do, folks? What do we do about these judges? What are we going to do about them? We didn't elect them. Like I said, they're appointed. What is it we can do?
I don't know what we can do as individuals, but and I question this if it's true or not. But I have heard that there's nothing in the Constitution that prevents the executive branch to dismantle a lot of these federal courts.
We've talked about it. Yes,
all over, and begin to just fire them all.
I think it was, I can't remember what the state was, but they just basically, I think it was Arkansas, have put the 10 Commandments back up in the classrooms. Wait a minute.
That's right, yeah.
Wait a minute. The Supreme Court said they couldn't do that, right? Court said they couldn't do that. Wait a minute. How can they do that? Do the states report to the Fed or do the Fed report to the states? I'm always confused about that, Mr. Anderson. What do you think?
I get a little confused too, but I do think strongly about states' rights, where that fits into the program.
Amen. Amen. We've been talking about injustice early on. I'll get to some of the other headlines, but the John Adams quote. Here's what man in the Garden of Eden, God made a perfect world. And then Adam and Eve said, okay, we'll take it from here. and you kind of know how that turned out, right? Not very well. The quote by John Adams carries profound meaning and holds great importance in understanding the foundation of our democracy.
Republic.
Yeah, I know. I knew you catch it. This is written by a liberal with regards to John Adams, and I kind of played around with the words in it. So I'm trying to get to the point here. Adams, one of the founding fathers of the United States, was expressing his belief that the successful functioning of the Constitution relies on virtuous and ethical nature of people in government, public servant positions. In a straightforward interpretation, Adams is highlighting the necessity for a moral compass and religious principles in the individuals who govern and are governed. He suggests that a constitution alone, no matter how well crafted, cannot secure the stability and prosperity of the nation without the active participation of virtuous citizens. Define a woman, define virtuous citizen, right? This implies that ethical values and spiritual beliefs bring about a sense of accountability, integrity, and respect for the law. However, delving deeper into the quote, it also opens up a thought-provoking dialogue about the role of morality and religion in governance. Again, this is from a liberal. While it's widely accepted that a moral and religious foundation provides a strong basis for a just and equitable society, we are now told to believe that we should as well consider implications of such a requirement for those who do not adhere to religious and spiritual beliefs. What we're talking about here, folks, is secular morality, which is a philosophical approach that suggests one can derive ethical behavior from purely rational and humanistic considerations. Isn't there a book that writes something about the nature of man? Somewhere, I can never remember. Go through so many books. Secular morality posits that individuals can develop a moral framework based on reason and empathy, devoid of religious dogma, challenging the notion that morality is inherently tied to religious beliefs, in direct contrast to the perspectives presented by Adams, especially when secular morality serves to highlight the diversity of belief systems that exist alongside constitutional governance. While Adams emphasized the compatibility of religion and morality with the Constitution, secular morality advocates for the inclusion of all individuals. Morals by a democracy. Isn't that kind of what we got right now? Morals by a democracy? And they kind of waver from time to time. What's right and wrong is now wrong and right, and then hang around for a century or decade because it may flip back again. And we'll get at least release everybody out of prison and pat them on the back and say, sorry, things have changed. You can go now. We have to have stability in our laws, folks. We have to have stability in our lives, in our families. And to get and maintain that. The stability today, the right and wrong today, has to be the right and wrong tomorrow. If everybody's right, then nobody's right. Right? Inclusion of all individuals, irrespective of religious affiliation, expanding the scope of ethical responsibilities to encompass those who may not identify as religious while supposedly still upholding the principles of justice, fairness, and compassion. Believing the diverse world we inhabit is composed of people with a myriad of beliefs and values. Yes, it does. Yes, that is the world. If you want order in it and not anarchy, again, you have to get back to a set of rules. Again, I think there was a book that had a set of rules one time too. Still out there. I think it started off with a basic set of 10. Gosh, I wish I could remember that. But anyway, it sounded pretty good when I read it. And some of the rules sounded pretty good, like, don't kill anybody and honor your mother and father. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Acknowledging that this pluralism prompts us to consider alternative approaches to governance that accommodate a variety of moral orientations. I love the words these people use. Inclusion, orientation. Sounds so inclusive. Well, Adams' quote emphasizes the necessity of a moral and religious society for the successful operation of the Constitution. The introduction of secular morality invites an inclusive perspective that recognizes ethics derived from secular reasoning. You can kill that baby as long as it's still in the womb for now. We're working on 3 or 4 months later, you can still do that. The baby is alive in the womb. It is a live person. But that's my religious opinion. My opinion as a man, too. From secular reasoning, ensuring fair, representative, and equal protection for all members of society. Nope. Natural laws notwithstanding. Which finds us where we are today in America, where man may recognize the intent of John Adams' words and recognize his want and belief in the importance of a moral and religious foundation as the bedrock of well-functioning constitutional democracy. However, modern-day man now insists that Americans simultaneously invite the concept of secular morality, is that an oxymoron, in society, fostering a more inclusive approach to governance, believing that in doing so, Americans can strive toward a system that values morality, religion, and ethical behavior while embracing the diversity of beliefs and perspectives that enrich our democratic fabric. I'll be honest with you, I can agree to this. Once we find a way to get oil and water to mix. Wow. What a wicked web we weave. Let's take a break, Mr. Anderson, and talk a little bit about justice. B.J. Edwards Long, Mr. Anderson, your last call.
Last call with B.J. Edwards. Real talk about real life.
If you like, I could share that Dr. Phil.
Yes, yeah, please. And then I'm going to bring. Let's see. I'm going to bring everybody in here. Just boom, 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 boom. Let's see that the video's good, folks. There is a right and there is a wrong, and we are without excuse. We are without excuse because God has developed natural laws to support the laws that you find, those 10 commandments plus in the Bible. Try to prove the Bible wrong, please. Try to prove it wrong.
Well, this isn't about the Bible, but it gives an interesting secular perspective of how important religion is.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some questions for you, and I want you to respond with a show of hands, if you will. How many of you can remember a time when this country seemed less divided? Raise it real high. Okay. How many of you can remember a time when families seemed more connected? Raise your hand. When values, things we held near and dear, seemed more clearly defined. When the definition of right and wrong wasn't ambiguous. Raise your hand. A time when we took more pride in God and country and weren't afraid to say so. Raise your hand. So many of you raised your hand, which means things have changed, and we could even say declined. The statistics tell us that there has been a decline of religion's influence on society, and that it's led to a change in the way that we actually live. now there's more divorce and just living together, and that's become more acceptable, almost expected, actually. And declining religion, which has dropped below 50% for the first time in our country's history, leads to fewer and later marriages, and that means fewer children, and that means less organized religion, and that means more divorce, and by definition, that leads to more children of divorce, which leads to fewer marriages, which leads to declining religion. And around we go. It's all linked. And the benefit of having faith in God is not some vague notion, it's demonstrably helpful. Our founders saw that and they protected it in our Constitution. And in 2020, church membership for the United States, as I say, dropped below 50% for the first time in our country's history. Now, about 6,000 to 10,000 churches close down every year. In the past 30 years, the number of Americans who said they never attended religious services doubled. Christianity is shrinking. It was 90% in 1972, 54% in 2020. Now, trends indicate this will continue to decline over the next 50 years. And most unaffiliated are young. 69% are under 50 and 63% of those are white. Now, you may think, okay, Dr. Phil, you're just Bible thumping. I haven't gone preacher on you. Lord knows that. I'm talking about psychosocial data. Empirical facts bear out the connection. For example, religious service attendance is associated with a 50% lower divorce rate. Women who never attended church, their fertility rate is around 1.3 children versus 2.1 for women who attended weekly. Now, is that important to our society? Well, yeah, it is. We can't sustain our infrastructure at 1.3. We can sustain it at 2.1. Actively religious people tend to be happier, less stressed, and less prone to substance abuse. That's a fact. Whether you think, well, you're just pushing religion or not, I'm just telling you the facts. I'm just telling you the fact that people are less stressed when they go to church. Now, here's the question. Why? Why the trend? Could it be that society, all of us, are just morally corrupt? Are we just less grounded? Or could it be that organized religion is just missing the mark? They're not reading the room. Maybe they're not feeding the flock, as they say. Because more and more, people just don't seem to be interested in buying what they're selling. Could that be it? Well, tonight, we're taking a hard, no-holds-barred look at the disconnection, because there is a disconnection. You can't deny that, and that's not good for society. You can't deny that. Now, joining me tonight is senior pastor at St. Luke Community United Methodist Church here in Dallas, Texas, Richie.
I'm going to bring Norm in. I'm going to bring Maggie in. Gonna bring Martin in. Gonna bring JC's not there right now. I'll bring Mr. Anderson in. But first of all, I got a question for you folks. Okay, is eating too much food substance abuse?
We don't want to talk about that.
I'm guilty. I've sinned, Lord.
I'm actually on a diet, so I'm going to have to agree.
I kind of like sugar.
Yeah.
Sugar, all the other white powder.
I mean, those Reese's cups. I don't know. That might be substance abuse.
Hey, comments on the video or comments on my comments about justice. I mean, we have a school in Montgomery County that parents are removing their kids from the school because the schools, although they promised not to, were showing adult material regarding sex to kindergarten and up to 6th grade.
They're renting films from Lion's Den?
Yeah. I don't think like, okay. Yeah. So what do you think about our justice system? Anybody? The floor is open.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. First, on the judges, if I understand it right, Congressman Issa from California wrote a bill to stop the federal judges from being able to rule on anything outside of their district. That has passed the House and has gone to the Senate. So we're waiting on that.
Amen.
And, I started at the first of the year. I'm writing a weekly summary on what's happened, and I do the political side, and then I do the scripture side. And I want to read 2 verses of what I wrote in part of the poem that I wrote, just 2 verses out of it, and then I want to talk about it. And I want to relate it to judges. They say there is no leader in the Democratic Party. I could not disagree with that statement more. Their leader is none other than the devil himself. Our country is in a major spiritual war. Jesus told leaders, you follow your father, the devil. Jesus was speaking in spiritual terms, of course. Jesus said, your will is to do your father's desires, and they do so without any remorse. And I've come to the conclusion that these judges and even our Supreme Court follow. I believe the devil is leading them for the most part. I think we've got a couple that maybe he's not, and then Alito and the other one, I can't think of his name right, Justice Thomas. But that they're being led by their spiritual father, and that's why we see the Democrats constantly. They have the same talking points, and they don't have a conference call in the morning and talking about these. Those are coming from their spiritual father, and again, Christians has allowed this to happen, and but this spiritual war is major. And amen to the video that we just watched. And yeah, this is on the church, and we're gonna have to see it as such. That's all.
I'd add, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's John 14:15. And that's what comes to mind, because nowadays you see many who profess Lord, Lord, but their hearts are far from him. There's a lot of religion of the tongue, but then when you see actions speak louder than words. So I think if we're going to make America truly great again, we're going to have to see the fruit of the genuine believers. There's a lot of people out there claiming Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. They'll say, yes, I've been born again. Yes, I believe Jesus. I've accepted him into my heart. They'll agree with all the lingo, but then you're just kind of puzzled because you look at their life and it doesn't display any of the fruit of the Bible, anything that God's word says a believer, a genuine born again Christian should be. So I guess I would say, beware false converts. Many will claim on that day that they knew Christ, and he's going to say, depart from me, for I knew you not. And, as it says in John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commandments. Well, what are his commandments? You shall not steal. You shall not take God's name in vain. How many people do we see using God's name flippantly? And even people who say they profess they love Christ and they still use God's name in vain. Do not commit adultery. How many do we see? And God takes it a step further and says to lust is to commit adultery. So, if we love Christ, we need to follow Christ and keep his commandments. And I would just encourage you to just continue to proclaim that message, because the only way we're going to make this nation great again is if we make it godly again. That's the root of our country was founded on Judeo-Christian values, and that's what made us great. And that's what's going to make us great if we are going to be truly great again.
I couldn't agree more with MAGA Mouse, aka Caitlin. This very hat I was wearing this morning at breakfast in a crowded Bob Evans restaurant. And just exactly what MAGA Mouse is saying, I couldn't help but wonder, not that I was judging them, but I couldn't help but wonder, because I live in a pretty conservative city here in Ohio, and I couldn't help but wonder how many other Christians were sitting around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, they're just having breakfast, but
in fear,
go ahead, BJ.
In fear and trembling by what, looking at your hat.
Probably. It was amazing the response I got. And what Maga Mouse is saying, I happened to just talk about yesterday at work with some customers that came to my job, and they were expressing their love and their admiration for President Trump. And I said, but honestly, you guys, we have to take it to the local level. We have to, just as Maga Mouse was saying, be the Christians right here where I work. And both this lady and this gentleman couldn't help but shake their heads. And I had went ahead and told them some things that I had done on the local level, and went into detail about that. Just what I've done as a father and a lover of Jesus. And they actually thanked me. So I really believe if the church would get involved, like I know this panel does, just take 1 hour out of your life to help the J-6 movement. I watched the first segment to stop some kind of abnormality in your local city, town, village, wherever. You will be seen, yes, and you will be seen as someone doing good, whether they believe you're a believer or not. I always thought it's a good format of evangelism, because when they find out that I'm a Christian, then I can tell them about Jesus. When they come up like that couple said, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing, Martin. I said, I was glad to serve in Jesus' name. I then took that crown that they gave me, and I threw it to Jesus. And I don't know if these folks, I knew they were conservative, but I didn't know if these folks were introduced to Christ or not.
Yeah.
And so those are things that we can do. We can take, as you say, BJ, we can take these problems and turn them into opportunities. And if we can formulate it into the fashion that it leads that person to Christ, that's the goal.
Yeah, that's something my brother and I did last Saturday. There was an anti-Trump rally downtown, and we didn't go as Trump supporters, but we went as ambassadors for Jesus Christ, and there was some local abolitionists going. So they went with their signs to, be out there on the sidewalks talking to people about abortion and how we need to end it and protect the preborn babies. And my brother and I went around and tried to interview people to get to a gospel conversation. We tried to ask them why they were there and then lead it down into the gospel. And we were just encouraged by, you can, the church always says just proclaim the gospel. Well, there's so many opportunities if you want to just proclaim the gospel. The unfortunate thing is the people who usually say that don't usually seem to be proclaiming the gospel, which is what the church is supposed to be doing. It's the only reason Christians have been left in this world is to proclaim the gospel and make disciples. But a neat thing that happened was after all the crazy people had gone home that were chanting my body, my choice and everything, we gathered up with the abolitionists and just prayed there right by the sidewalk where we'd been standing for like the 2 hours. That was the whatever you call that, their rally. And it looked like everyone had gone home, but a guy came back and he said, hey, I just want you guys to know that even though I don't maybe believe everything that you guys believe or stand exactly where you stand, I respect you guys for being out here. And here we thought everyone had gone away, everyone had gone home, but somebody was still watching. So just realize that even when you don't think people are watching, there's people watching, and they see how we respond differently than the world responds to hate. And hopefully, I know that guy at least saw genuine, true love that day, because the abolitionists get treated terribly, but they don't respond in the same way that the other side does.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we can continue the conversation. And I have something to compliment you on in terms of those crowds showing up in places we know they're showing up in, and to do with opportunity. So, Mr. Anderson, take us to a break, if you will. We'll come back. We'll continue our panel discussion. Law and order.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Now, it's pretty difficult. Welcome back. It's pretty difficult to try to get a group of people together, concentrated area, to share the love, the truth, and hope of Jesus Christ with them. It's pretty difficult to do that. But here's the deal. The enemy's already doing that for you. You've got Magga was talking about a group of people that were protesting, if you will, Donald Trump. And in Westerville, Ohio, this past Saturday, and I think in Mount Vernon and other places, there were other folks showing up again. The hate the conservatives, hate Donald Trump thing, and this is a wonderful opportunity to witness to them. And part of that witnessing might be one of the questions I might ask Meg is I'm just curious. I really appreciate your enthusiasm. Just a question for you: Do you believe that you were created or that you evolved?
Created in God's image.
Yeah. You can do what you want with it, but just asking that question, which is a partial building a relationship. Once you
yeah.
And we are trained. This is very important. We are trained, I think, from the womb out, but we're trained to answer questions. Our government run schools do that. Our parents do that. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. You have to answer it. So when you go out and to talk to anybody, once you ask them a question, they're compelled to answer. They don't want to, but they have to because they've been trained to. And
put them on the hot seat.
Yeah. Well, it forces them to develop a relationship with you, whether they like it or not. Once they answer the question, you've had back and forth conversation with somebody. That's what I'll call a cold call. Just walk up and slam, start hitting them with information. But I'm telling you what, folks, there's opportunities out there when you see all these folks that are getting together and they want love.
Yeah.
So some love. Comments.
For sure. Everyone down there is definitely wanting love. They're all there for a reason. They all got an axe to grind, much bitterness and hatred. And they'll tell you that they serve a God of love. They'll tell you they serve Jesus. They'll tell you they are believers and everything. But their God is all love, 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 love. And there's no justice. There's no right and wrong. And that's when you get to talk to people about, well, you criminals are going to stand guilty, right? All these horrendous acts that people do. You have to get them thinking. That's the biggest thing. If you can get them thinking that, they even have a standard of justice that they've set. They even have a standard of morals of right and wrong. And there's going to be a standard, obviously, on Judgment Day. Everyone knows that. There's a standard to get into just my little Republican meeting event. You have to have, your name has got to be on the list, So same thing for heaven. How do you think you're going to bribe a righteous and just God on Judgment Day? So we just try to walk them through the 10 commandments and get them to realize that they've all broken those. And it's only by putting their faith and trust in Jesus Christ alone for salvation. But unfortunately, they haven't had the genuine, true love. It's kind of more the feminine, motherly love, but we need the masculine love too, which tells you, no, don't do that. That's what's unfortunate about so much of the feminism and stuff that's taken over. It's taken away that we still need, the hard truth. Like you were saying, you don't need another cookie, stop. You're going to be fat, There's some genuine love there too that we need. And that's why God set up marriage, one man, one woman, because it works together. And if it's one-sided over the other, just kind of like God's love and justice, it's equal. It's not one's above the other.
When it comes to food and my substance abuse, I don't discriminate. I do not discriminate. It's all good.
Yeah.
all the time.
I agree.
Well, I want to say thank you for what you do. You know, I think you're an amazing young lady. I ordered 60 postcards.
I saw that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a donation or a thing, but I'd rather send a check if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have my address on the thing. When I send it to you, you'll get a little sheet. That way you can write a check to.
Connect you two up if you.
We'll let BJ take care of that next way. We won't put your name in the chat if you want to keep it kind of on the quiet side. And also May 10th, we're having a craft show. So I plan on handing them out and speaking about that and other things.
Yeah, I'll bring some with me too if there's any left. Hopefully there'll be none left by the time I get there.
Hopefully not, but I figured there's going to be a lot of people there, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Trumpsters and supporters, and I want to make sure they get out. I want to make sure I give it to people that aren't going to throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, it would mean so much to David Michelle. You know, I'm helping, but it's their lives that are on the line. You know, like I don't have that pressure aboard and I need that pot in to provide for my family, you know. So like what I'm doing is like nothing compared to like when I hear him speak, I'm always re-energized and reminded it's real people with real lives on the line. And that always encourages me. Sure, I could pass out a few more postcards. I could talk to a few more people. I could reach out to a few more people. When I hear them speak, it always encourages me to do more because like his daughter, you know, it's their lives that are on the line and they need help. They're tired. They're exhausted. He's working a full-time job and trying to advocate for his pardon. And I don't know how he balances all the things he does. So thank you so much. That means a lot to them.
Yeah, one thought on the cards. I know you can't always, but if you're where you could, just ask them to go ahead and fill it out and say, I'll even put it in the mail for you.
Yeah,
and
that's
that
huge.
way, you know, they won't be throwing them in the trash. And most people won't, but I think if no longer than it takes to fill one out, that'd be good if you can.
Oh, and I would be happy to. I know and stamps are expensive, but it'd be well worth the cost.
100%. Yep.
Do you understand what's happening here, folks? We're not in our own silos. We've talked about the family. We've talked about abortion. We've talked about J-6ers. It's all together. I mean, we are all the United States, not the United States of victims, but the United States of doers. That's how this country got to where it got to. There was incredible sacrifices made to get us to the point where we could be who we are and where we are. And the founders, strangely enough, had a Christian bent to them. Yeah, they did. And they knew that when they set up a country, that when they made rules, a constitution, if you will, that constitution was done under the auspices, if you will, of God and the Bible, 10 Commandments being a good place to start. But it's just where we came from is incredible. Where we are right now is supernatural. But again, it offers opportunities for everybody to do something like never before. We need those, by the way. We've become spoiled as a nation, Uberized, if you will. You want something, pick up the phone and call. Pretty soon, we're not even going to have to pick up the phone and call. It'll be there at your doorstep, and you'll go, "I didn't think of that." No, but AI did. Yeah, AI knew. When you get on the internet and you start doing a search, do you see all these familiar things appearing to you? Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Jack, you want in? Unmute yourself, brother. I like your shirt. Jack's spreading the word in Maine.
He looks like he's at a festival or something.
He is. Jack, can you talk? You're muted, brother. You're muted. Still muted. Maybe God's sending you a message. I really, the Natural Family Month is coming up. I'm sorry, it's a Natural Family Celebration. It's a 5-week month. It starts with Mother's Day. And starting on Mother's Day, we celebrate mothers. How can you celebrate your mother? Think about that. And then on the second week, we celebrate children, a blessing, a gift. Being a parent, folks, is the most rewarding vocation, job, thing, whatever, that you will ever do. Then grandparents. Oh, wow. Being a grandparent is just an incredible experience. All that work you put into your children, all that effort, and to see them having children. And here's the nice part about it. You can come and go as you please. You always have to stay with your children. With the grandchildren, you can come spoil the dickens out of them, create problems for mom and dad, and then leave. Yeah, that's fun. No, just kidding. Just kidding. The next week is extended family, and we're all part of that. The natural family celebration is the most inclusive celebration that you could ever imagine from a man's standpoint. And it ends on Father's Day, with the week leading up to Father's Day and how we honor the fathers. And it's also a reminder of fathers that that's what they need to be. The leaders, the support, the foundation of that family. Children learn authority in the family. I'm sorry, children should learn authority in the family. Sadly, very few of them do this day and age. I've got some, we're going to take a break. That one video, Mr. Anderson, of the high school, the teacher and the children. After the break, would you play that? Because I want to talk about what happened here locally at a school that I support financially. Not purposeful, but I have to support financially. And what happens when we don't have that parent leadership? When the schools try to be the parents. And it's going to happen more and more and more. If you would, Mr. Anderson, take us to break. B.J. Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last call with B.J. Edwards.
Get your ass one, bro.
Taking time out for a school activity, right? The local school system that exists where I live just got rid of a organization called LifeWise. Now, LifeWise is a Christian organization that during free time a child had from school, in school, would come pick up that school, pay for it, the transportation, and take that child to a church and teach them about Jesus Christ. And it was a growing movement, which was threatening to the humanist desires of the school board members and selected community members. And after several meetings, they decided it was causing too much trouble. Yeah, children were seeing these Christians come back with smiling faces and being happy about things. And they were intimidated by that. And they went home and whined at mommy and daddy. So they took LifeWise out. They took the 10 Commandments off the wall, prayer out of schools. And most recently here, a Christian effort out of school again. This past Tuesday at this school, there was an altercation involving students and non-students that led to a police response. 3 males who were not Westerville students, that's the school system, were removed from the building. A BB gun was found in a book bag during the investigation. Today it's a BB gun in a fight. How soon before it becomes another Columbine? Maybe not in our school system, but in another school system. We keep asking for this. And natural law can take over. Investigators reviewed security footage after the incident showing several students leaving the school through an athletic wing door. In other words, students left. We have resource officers, and the doors are locked. So students go out and they bring in their friends who don't go to the school. And the next thing you know, a fight occurs. Surprise, surprise, surprise. It goes into detail about what happened. 12-page police report, names, addresses, social security numbers. 10:19 a.m., several individuals exit. The same individuals come back, bringing their friends in with them with the BB gun. A fight ensues. Public indoctrination centers, folks. They teach these children 4 things. Critically important. Number 1, life has no meaning. Morals are relative. Number 2, multiculturalism and diversity. Man, not God, is the measure of all things. And of course, the last one is state your daddy. When you put your child in a government-run school, you turn the authority over that child to the schools. Whether you like it or not, you do. You think not? Try to get in that school without a vaccination. Not by your choice, but by theirs. But it's for the good of the other children, right? That's why we teach multiculturalism and diversity, because it's for the good of the other children. Jack, you want in? I don't know. I guess you're not there yet. JC, I needed you to get in here earlier, but you can go ahead and get in now.
Hey, thanks a lot. I had to sell a car, so that was good.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the comment, the thing I told you before the show, from Pastor John Armancachua, however you say his name.
He's talking to public schools, right?
Yeah, doing the school board meetings, a filthy book. He's been to something like 25 or 30 school board meetings in different states, traveling around. His quote today was on his website: if we don't love our neighbor, if we don't correct our children, if we don't teach them self-control before someone else teaches them violence, we will lose them. That was fitting after you just played that video.
Mm-hmm.
P.S. He says, but I still believe there is hope. I just got done with a husband, wife, and a 15-and-a-half-year-old kid here, girl, get in the car. Grandpa comes in. They come yesterday. Grandpa comes in ahead of time, writes a check for $5,000, 95% of the car. Dad and mom's going to finish paying the last $600-700. So Grandpa's 80. Talking to him a little bit before they got here. They were test driving, actually, and he's in here. He said, well, we were talking about stuff. Well, I'll never get paid back. Well, I'll never. I said, Grandpa, stand up and be a man. You got to lead. His son, he doesn't believe his son will pay him back. Doesn't believe granddaughter's going to appreciate that. He loves them all. I said, men are missing in action. So we went through this little thing with him. I said, you got to stand up. You got to lead. So they come in, he leaves, he writes a check, and we're doing the paperwork. Come to find out, his wife's sitting over here. She's a school teacher. At East Knox.
Oh, no.
So, you know where we went with that. I
Yeah.
started talking about the kids in the school and the drugs and the LGBTQ and little Johnny might be a girl. And that woman's sitting over there. She ain't saying nothing. And I already knew she was the school teacher, and she didn't know I knew it. And finally, the dad says, well, he said, my wife's a school teacher. I said, yeah, these snocks, I already know. I did 2 years of school board meetings. I said, I went in and told them, I said, school board members, I said, you all people say you all go to a church here locally. You all say you're a Christian, but you're destroying these little kids in these schools. I said, the scripture says if you just harm one of these little ones, a millstone be hung around your neck. I'm just going through it. She's sitting over there. She's kind of grinning. So I'm talking to this young girl. I said, young lady, 15 years old, 15 and a half. I said, your grandpa's 80 years old. I said, you better love on him and spend as much time as you can with him. He ain't got much time left. Don't waste any of it. It's do you appreciate grandpa doing this for you? And so we had some other things said and stuff, what happened at the school down there with kids I coached and different things. I said, she's getting ready to leave. I said, hey, now, if you have any problems pop up at that school, let me know. I said, you tell us. I said, we'll run the flag up the pole. She said, what do you mean? She said, it's an everyday occurrence in that damn place. She would just live it. But she said, my daughter's only got 2 more years to go. I just got to keep my mouth shut. That's what it's all about right there. Don't say nothing. But it was an interesting morning, so it was all good.
As goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Yep.
Stuart Rhodes, we only have about 5 minutes, brother, and that's not justice for you.
My apologies. I was caught in traffic, but I can come back on another time. That's fine.
Yeah, do that because I really wanted to get into that conversation with you about justice because you've got some experience with our justice system.
Amen.
I'd like to share with you. I'll get a hold of you off air and we'll talk a little bit.
God bless.
Yes, sir. I hope you appreciate the value that not I offer, but the people that you've listened to today offer. MAGA, JC, all the J6ers, every one of them. I don't care. None of them got a fair trial. Point blank, none. And we need to start off with that. Secondly, every doggone one of them, talk about retribution. I mean, how do you can't bring back the ones that killed themselves because they were afraid they were going to be put in prison. They knew what it meant. And to them, it was easier to kill themselves versus going to prison. I'm not promoting that. I'm just saying that happened. And if, as a relative, how do you restore that? How do you fix that? One of the things you need to do is make sure it never happens again. It should have never happened in this nation. But we are human led. And supposedly under a constitution, when we pay attention to it, we do it a whole lot better than what we're doing today. The injustice that occurs here is just incredible. A lot of things need to change, but they are ground up. Start locally, folks. At your local school board, local city council, parish, church, organization. Do not hesitate to at least go and listen, take notes, and then research. And then if you see a need, hop in. And please, none of us is perfect. I'm the director of the Natural Family Foundation. I've been divorced. I came from a broken home. I was not a good boy when I was growing up. But that doesn't mean, look, if you're a Christian, you're forgiven, right? That still doesn't mean you can't take those experiences that you've had and use them as a positive instead of running from them. And they want you to run from them. They don't want that experience that you bring to the table. They want to shame you. Don't let that happen. We need you in that battle, and we need you in that battle right now. Not a day from now, right now. You see what's happening. You know what the problems are. Again, sit down, do your research, and then engage. Mr. Anderson, why don't you get...
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.